Solutions. Congress acts to stop another Great Depression. That's how bad this was. There was great fear that we would go into another depression like we had in the 1930s. The first laws. Congress passed the Economic Stimulus Act in February of 2008. The purpose of this act was to help low and middle income families, like most of us, get tax rebates, anywhere from $300 to $600, so that we would go out and spend that on new things. But it really didn't work too well because we used that money mostly to pay existing bills. We didn't really take that money and go out and buy new things. Here's a photograph of President Bush signing the Stimulus Act in front of House leaders and Senate leaders. Now, the Federal Reserve Bank and the Treasury Secretary both agreed that these investment banks that were trading these mortgage-backed securities and derivatives were on the verge of all going bankrupt. And they thought, wow, if they go bankrupt, then the entire world is going to be in a deep, deep depression. So they actually convinced Congress to loan billions of dollars to these investment banks so that they would not fail. This is known as the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act of October 2008. It's also better known as what we call TARP. And TARP is an acronym that stands for the Troubled Asset Relief Program. Troubled assets being those mortgage-backed securities and derivatives. Here's a political cartoon bailing out the investment banks, knowing that our firemen are actually putting the fire out in the investment banks, but look at the houses nearby. They're not being helped. So, who got TARP money? All of these are investment banks. Bank of America, Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, just to name a few. I bet your parents recognize some of these. In fact, I bet your parents might even have their home mortgage through one of these banks. One of mine is. Here are some other TARP recipients. Who else got TARP money? Well, the automakers in Detroit got a lot of TARP money because there was a fear that General Motors and Chrysler were also going to go bankrupt. Why? Because a lot of people stopped buying those big SUVs that Detroit was making. They were also laying off a lot of workers because people kind of stopped buying those big cars. And a lot of car dealerships were closing. So Congress, again, allocated TARP money to keep General Motors and Chrysler running. By the way, both Chrysler and General Motors have paid back all of the money that they received from Congress. Here's a political cartoon of Congress bailing out the auto industry in Detroit. So what about the rest of us? What about the rest of us Joes and Jills out there? Congress passed a measure called the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act in February 2009. By this point, President Obama is now president. The purpose of this is to provide new jobs and tax assistance to businesses and individuals, which equal to about $787 billion. You might be wondering, wow, where did Congress get that money? Well, you know that our government is always borrowing money from people and other countries in the form of selling off treasury bonds. Also, we always get money, we get revenue through taxes. Another measure that Congress passed was the Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act in July of 2010 to regulate banks' trading of risky investments and protect citizens from being tricked by bank lenders. Remember those banks that tried to sell mortgage loans to people who really couldn't afford them, selling them subprime mortgages, which are really adjustable rate mortgages? Yeah, people got tricked into signing the dotted line on those, but they really didn't understand them. They didn't think that they would actually end up paying much higher interest rates as time goes by. So, this is how the money was allocated. Notice that infrastructure is in yellow. Infrastructure is anything that helps improve transportation, improving roads, bridges,